as far as what some of the schools are doing in terms of connecting to the industry sectors in such a way that it affects curriculum and it affects how students are moving through their education pathway along the lines of a specific career goal, to the extent that we have some really innovative things going on, from students earning their college degrees right out of high school to students that are actually training within a very specific career pathway that we'll hear about today, and even kind of get a perspective on the public policy side. We have a really good set of panelists that will walk you through for what's happening. So I'm going to do all the introductions first and get as much time for those speakers as we can. So starting here, we're going to visit with Melissa Smith at Crowder College, and this is very specifically Crowder on the Carthage Tech campus in the Carthage school system. Holly Goodnight is representing Carthage today, and then we have Dr. Angie Bessendorfer from the Joplin School District about the Career Pathway High School, and then Dan Decker, who is new to the Neosho system. And we'll be talking about Neosho a little bit, but also some of his leadership roles within the statewide framework of what we're seeing in terms of this policy framework. So we'll go ahead and start with Carthage. And if you guys keep that mic pretty close to you, we're recording today's session, as you're well aware. And if time permits at the end, we'll open it up for questions. But we wanted to give each of these three schools at least 10 minutes apiece to talk about what they're seeing in terms of career pathways, and probably respond to even some of the challenges and opportunities that were expressed earlier. So let's begin with Carthage.
All right, good morning. We're really excited to be here today to talk about the partnership that Crowder and Carthage have just recently kicked off. And, you know, this partnership really started probably about 1.5 years ago, just with conversations as we looked at our student population and our programs, and we're looking to the future and how we can make those better. Some discussions came in, you know, of course, about offering more dual credit, but then we thought, you know, we have accelerated students who want to work ahead, and so why not give them an opportunity to, if they work really hard and follow a course of study, to go ahead and get that associate's degree when they graduate. So that's kind of where the discussions came from. We were also wanting to service the student who maybe won't go to college after they graduate, or maybe will have to get into the workforce immediately, which we're seeing more and more of, to give them an opportunity to earn some college credit while in high school, and even that AA that maybe they could use later down the road for advancement in their position. So it really, we had a couple of different reasons why we wanted to do this. Another area that we were looking for is new MSEP 5, and looking how we can meet some of those standards, and offering dual credit and having those offerings in our programs, specifically in the Tech Center, is going to help us. In that area too. So we're going to kind of tag team this, 10 minutes. So I'm going to pass it to Melissa, and we'll go back and forth just discussing the program.
We have a really good relationship with Carthage and Carthage High School and Carthage Tech, and so it was a really easy communication to start out with, because we already had dual credit in their high school, and so with the option of expanding into the Tech Center was really easy to start with. Some of the programs that we wanted to start with, increasing dual credit in the high school, is where we really started our focus, and then it quickly became that we had need in the technical center, and why wouldn't we offer dual credit in the tech centers as well? And so we weren't aware of anybody else that was doing something similar to this, and so this was a new avenue. We met with the tech center directors and with Carthage administration to see if this is something they would be interested in, and they were definitely interested and thought that their students would be interested in partaking in this avenue. So we started thinking, okay, what can we do to promote this program? And so we started meeting with the students and meeting with parents and seeing if this is something that they would be interested in, and they were overwhelmingly interested. So this really got it kicked off. We started with just a few programs, and we of course continued to grow and continue to grow. So some of the programs that we offer at the Tech Center are PC Repair 1 and 2. We do have quite a few students that are interested in getting that dual credit so that it's directly on their their college transcript. So whether they're planning to come to Crowder, which we hope they do, but if they're planning to go to another community college or PSU or any of those institutions that would accept that credit, it's absolutely transcripted immediately, and so they can further their education that way. We also have agriculture, the health sciences with CNA. We also have construction in progress, fire science, criminal justice, all of those programs. I know Governor Nixon was very interested in putting out a lot of initiatives and encouragement for community colleges to help students within their area and school districts in helping them get to the workforce earlier. And this was another idea that we had come up with that would help them do that. So the students, it's really exciting, like Holly was talking about, that these students have the opportunity that may thought that they never could have gone to college, but they're already in their high school. They're using our syllabus. It's taught at the same college level, and so those students are, I've already completed 2 college courses, PC Repair 1 and 2 or CNA 101 and 102. I can go on and finish just a few more classes to get a certificate or to go on and complete their associate's degree.
Like Melissa said, we've had just an overwhelming positive response from both teachers and parents and students. Students are excited that they'll be able to have an opportunity to, some of them won't go ahead and get that associate's by the time they graduate, but they may graduate with, 30, 40 hours of dual credit, and so they know that when they graduate, it's not going to be a lot longer that they could get that associate, or that they have credits transcripted that they can take to a 4-year school. So hopefully what we're looking for next fall is that a majority of our programs at the Tech Center will be dual credit, which is just going to give our students just that leg up in a very competitive market. The other thing that, as we were looking at this, is the associate has several hours of elective, and so that's why it was important for our programs to go through that process to get approved so that they could fit right into that associate degree. So overall, it's been very positive. We've been very excited. We're excited to kick off our first class that could be eligible for an associate degree next fall, and we're excited to see where it goes.
I'm going to try really hard to keep to 10 minutes, so I'm going to go really fast, and I will leave a lot of questions that are probably out there, but there's several folks in the room that can help with if you have questions afterwards. And so I first want to introduce really quickly our career path coordinators. If you guys would just stand up. These are folks that we've hired in our school district to help be liaisons between business and educators as we develop new curriculum. They all have experience in the workforce outside of school, because we really feel like that it's time for us to make sure that we're communicating in a common language and that we make some differences. And so they've been hired full-time by the school district to develop curriculum starting from zero. So thanks, guys. I want you to know that before the tornado, before we didn't have a high school any longer, we began with some strategic planning pieces. Are we moving the slides? We began with 21st century skills that we feel like that our students should develop, and that was developed with about 100 people in the room, ranging from students to educators to business folks to parents, who came up with these skills that are important. And they include collaboration, communication, problem solving, technology literate, critical thinker, flexibility, adaptability, interpersonal skills, ethics and character, community and global awareness, and lifelong learner. And we believe that that is important for every student to have those skills. And we're focusing on that, and that's what we're hearing from our partners in HR and in the workforce, and so that's important. With that then, we talk about 21st century learning, and we ask ourselves, what would it look like if we really meant it? And so as we work through that, we know that we're going to have to change. And I heard in the first panel that there are some things that we're doing that's the same as when we were in school, which could be a pretty good indication that it's time to change, because the world is not the way it was when we were in school. When 2-year-olds can run an iPhone, we probably need to change kindergarten, let alone what we need to change with high school. And so we're working through that and moving through those kinds of things. So when we talk about what it means to be innovative and what are we going to innovate, we started having dream meetings and bringing folks together, 60, 80 people to come in to say, what would it look like if we really meant it, and to work through this. And so we're really thinking differently. We've visited schools. We've visited schools that are high schools that are doing innovative things. We've visited some career and technical centers that are doing innovative things, and we've brought those ideas back, cherry-picked the things, and have then developed a whole new vision for what high school should look like in the future. And with that, there are 5 main shifts. The 5 shifts are that we're going to have career paths. There's a career-focused path that every student, as an 8th grader, when they enroll for high school, will choose one of those 5 career paths as their main focus. Now, can they change that? Yes. You have the handout. You can see the 5 career paths, and I'll talk through those, but they can choose that. It doesn't mean that they're going to be just trained for something, but it's something different. Then I'll talk a little bit more through how that looks. We're also changing the way that students can earn credits to allow them to have more opportunities to move through, and that's the 3rd piece, which is a student empowerment model, where instead of the adults in the school get to decide when you can go and enroll in what and all this prerequisite stuff and all of those kinds of things, more letting students move through high school and getting the most that they can from high school based on their own interests and what they want out of life. And then rethinking how time is done in the high school is a big component that is pretty dramatic difference. And then also how we trust our kids. And so we'll talk through those things in the remaining time that I have. The next slide that I had was about the career path model, and so you have a copy of that. It does show the 5 career paths, and in the middle are the 21st century skills that I referred to. We believe that within those 5, our community has defined these are the important things for us. It's a little different than the state's career clusters or whatever, but this is what we believe that our kids can enter and be able to make some decisions on. However, they can also take an a la carte approach to this. For instance, if they want to be the PR person at the hospital, then they might really go deep into arts and communications, but they might also take some health sciences courses that relate to that, like health ethics. So just as an example, so that the student's future is what's leading their high school and how they interact and what classes they take. Now, it's important to state that regardless of what they are doing with that they have to have the required curriculum that's required for high school in the state of Missouri. That's a state law. It's not something we get to change. We get to change how we determine awarding credit. And so that's an important distinction. As you move to the next slide, it kind of explains that with the career paths, we want within each of those 5 areas an opportunity for students to go from high school to work with a job that could support a family. So, the things that were mentioned this morning, there's some really great jobs that you don't have to have college for. And we think that it's time for us to actually say that out loud as the educators. Now, keep in mind that MSIP that Holly mentioned, which is our Missouri School Improvement Program, which is how we receive our accreditation, requires a lot of things from us, including holding us accountable for percentage of students that go to college, the percentage of students that score above the national average or the state average on the ACT, all these different kinds of components. And so sometimes the hoops that we have to go through to stay accredited are contrary to what our community is saying, and we may need your help in helping to make changes in that side of it. But the career paths would have high school to work, high school to technical school, and we intend to have exactly what Carthage is doing with those articulated programs where students could graduate with an associate's degree or they're right into they're already into the program, and it's just like they just changed schools. But continue doing that. From high school to college, and we'll still have all of our AP and dual credit classes for those kids who are going to go from high school to college and right on into graduate degree programs and like that. So we want to serve every kid in this high school, And we're willing to say right now that our traditional model of high school is doing a pretty good job of the 60% of the kids who want to go to college. We're doing a fairly good job with those kids. What we don't do very well is in the model, because of the way the model is built, is helping kids to realize that there is life beyond just going on to college. And so we're trying to do a better job with that. On the next slide, actually 2 forward, I want to talk about student empowerment. We believe that high school kids are just ready to get on with their life, and that's what they want. They want to be in charge of their life, and so we're going to give them the opportunity to accelerate through things by creating different ways to earn credits. And so their passion, their choices, and how much time they want to spend in different kinds of things is going to be up to them. Their effort is going to be what guides how much they get out of high school. So they could graduate with certifications and degrees. They could graduate with a lot of different kinds of things, depending on how quickly they want to move forward. That can be, I want to spend more time in the auto tech lab, so I'm going to hurry up and get through and take some other classes and put in a bunch of effort to get past it, even though I don't like it, so I can be in the lab. Or it could be that I'm going to get as much as I can in dual credits before I go on to graduate school to cut off 2 years of college rather than one. Or I really want an internship and I'm going to start now, and so moving through that. But we believe that this motivational factor will reduce our dropout issue, and so we think that's going to be an important thing. The next piece is rethinking time. We're asking ourselves, who said it takes the same number of minutes to learn algebra as biology or art appreciation, and why do we do it that way? And why do we assume that it's going to take me the same number of minutes as it is going to take for Holly or for Dan? And why do we say that it has to be the same way? And why do we have kids go from box to box to box to box for 7 hours a day and do it that way? Maybe school needs to be a different kind of time. Maybe we need to embrace online. Maybe we need to have all different kinds of ways to get Algebra 1. And it could be sit in Algebra 1 class. Or it could be, here's embedded ways that we make Algebra 1s that goes with the unit in the auto body lab. And that they can get actually different kinds of ways to make that learning more real, particularly for the kids who don't have it. We also want to be able to have kids earn credits differently, and it may be that there's actually in the cloud courses that they can take and master on time, on demand, when they're ready for it. So the concept of semesters, the concept of an 8 to 3 day, the concept of every class has the same number of hours, we're throwing out the window. Instead, what we're going to be doing is saying, there's ways you can sit through that and accomplish a class with a certain number of hours, or there are ways you can prove that you've met those standards and you know that learning, and move on. And we think that empowerment's going to be good for both those kids who catch things really easy and the kids who just want to get past things. So that's going to be really different. In the framing of time, that may be all different kinds of ways, and so there was information in the slide, and I could talk about that at another time. But it could be you get credit for an internship. It could be that you get credit for doing different kinds of things. Maybe art appreciation is 6 Saturdays going to the big cities around and actually seeing art. Maybe it's really different, really something that's more engaging. And then finally, trust is another big piece, because if we're not going to keep kids in boxes for 7 hours a day, we're going to have to trust them a little differently, because we're empowering them to be in charge of their life. And so that's going to be a big different shift. Do we think it's going to be perfect when we open our new high school? Probably not, but we do think we're going to be better than we are today. And that's what we're really shooting for, and we think that we're on the right track. And it's going to take us a little while to work through it, but we're going to do a better job. And for us, we're asking really the questions of what does it mean, what does it look like if we really mean it? If we really mean that kids need to be prepared for a work life that is college and career ready, for that beyond, and it's for every kid, not just for the ones who want to go to college. So those are kind of the big ideas that I have.
For my part, the first part I want to do is just kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the state of Missouri with education and what they're trying to do at the state level that will help make some of the vision that Angie has and for what we're going to look at Neosho and some of the things that other districts are doing, but make it more of not a reality, because it can be done. There's just a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to get it done now, but to make it basically the pieces that need to be legislated, and then things that need to be changed at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education changed, so that districts have the freedom to move and do those things to best meet the needs of the kids, the students that they have. This past fall, Commissioner DeCastro, the Commissioner of Education for the state of Missouri, developed a task force. They named it the Proficiency-Based Task Force. You could call it Mastery, you could call it Competency, however you want to do that, to begin to look at allowing students to move at their own pace, to begin to examine the removal of the time constraint. For anybody that's been in education, the old Carnegie unit said you had to set this many hours in this class in order to get credit. For the school to get funding, the student had to be in the seat this many hours for you to get funding to be able to pay for the education of the students. And so what she wanted in the development of this task force was to get educators together, to get all of the different groups that represent education in their mind, and they're in the slide on the PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through all of them, but tried to represent the cross-section of all the ones who would be involved in education. And the first thing she said when she got into the room was, for the first time, as far as she can remember, DESE wants to get out of the way and actually allow educators to develop the system for allowing students to pass through. 4 meetings were held in Jefferson City this year, culminating with the presentation of the state board, and really it's just a scratching the surface of what we're doing or what we're looking at. They're going to reconvene us in the summer and fall of 2013, but basically we are charged with designing a model that will allow students to move. In the beginning it was a 9-12 mindset. How would we allow students to move through high school at their own pace? By the time we were finished, it's basically a K-12 mindset. We've got students realizing we got students in kindergarten who may be able to read at a 3rd grade level, or we have students in 1st grade that can do 4th grade math. Allowing those students to work at that level, never having them be bored or doing work that's beneath what their skill level is. And so they began to talk in that capacity. The definition they put forth, establishing the level of student learning through demonstration of knowledge or skill without regard for time taken or the structure of the delivery. For the state of Missouri, that is something that is very foreign. There have been a few schools that have kind of dabbled with it, but as a rule it's been very foreign, and for districts to be able to do that, you have to contact the department all of the time. The main goal is going to be allow students to learn and perform at the level they're capable of, and one-to-one technology or technology in their hands is going to be a huge asset. And I think that's something that Joplin's already doing one-to-one. The current district that I'm at, Aurora, we went one-to-one. That's a direction we want to go at Neosho, because there are going to be several different platforms for students to learn on, and we need to make sure that we give them that opportunity. The Common Core standards, if you've heard any of that, there's been a lot of hoopla in the legislature over that this spring. But the Common Core standards, Missouri is one of the states that adopted that. It's a perfect time to move toward mastery, competency, or proficiency-based learning, whichever you want to use. Because to do that, there's got to be set standards for those students to master in order to move ahead. The Common Core, because that's what we've adopted, sets those standards for us. And so I think that as we move ahead, you're going to hear more and more about that. Some of the obstacles that are out there right now: transcribable credits. If a student gets a credit for an internship at Joplin and they did it through 6 Saturdays when they transfer, if they move to another district, right now the district is not bound to accept that credit because it wasn't taken as a Carnegie unit. And so that's an obstacle that this group has to overcome to get into process, to get it written down and adopted by the state board, that if a student is in Joplin and they get credit through an internship and they move to Neosho, we will accept that credit because it meets the standard. That student met the standard in order to get that credit. So that's one of the issues we've got to still overcome. Missouri State High School Activities Association, they have requirements for participation, and some of that's built around seat time and credit earned. Right now, for students, they don't think outside the box. They're still pretty hinging on that time constraint, so we've got to work with them. And the other piece is funding, because right now in the state of Missouri, your funding's built around that Carnegie unit, that student in that seat for X amount of time. And so we've got to begin to look at that. They do have some attendance, like if you take an online class, you get 94% attendance for that student that's in that online class. The bad part about it is, for students who are A+, and A+ is huge with community colleges, and some of the four-year universities will allow scholarship money for that, but you have to have 95% attendance. And so those students, if they're going to take online courses, it will affect that attendance. So we've got to work with the legislature to either change the A+ requirement to 94% or change the attendance rate that we're going to give for students who are taking online classes to 95%. That's something that they're looking at. The other piece of funding that they're looking at is in a smaller school where I'm at Aurora right now, we have students who won't take dual credit and pay for it because they know that when they get out they can take it as A+, and they're going to use their A+ money, and they're not going to have to pay for that class if they wait. One of the things that they're looking at that will have to be adopted by the legislature is to allow A+ to be used in high school if the student has met the requirements. So if a student graduates at the end of their sophomore year, they're a high flyer, they've got all their graduation requirements in because they've been allowed to move through at their own pace, then they could actually access A+ monies to pay for classes their junior and senior year. And how all that will work so that the universities or the community colleges will get their amount of money, the high school will still get funding. That kind of stuff's got to be ironed out, but I think it's very possible for us to be able to do that. So those are things that are looking at the federal or at the state level, and things that are going on. You know, I think looking ahead, the future is going to change. Education is going to change. You're going to have students who still require that regular brick and mortar classroom. They learn best when they're in the seat, and they put that time in. That's necessary. You're going to have students who are basically going to be taking online classes or a blending of both. You're going to have students who take hybrid classes, what they call hybrid classes, which means maybe I'm on campus in a classroom 2 days a week, and then I'm either doing an intern or I'm doing the rest of it online. One of the things that we're piloting next year, or they're going to pilot at Aurora next year, is a chemistry class that will be online 3 days a week, and they'll come 2 days a week for lab. So it will be a blended learning or a hybrid learning situation. And then the next thing I think we're going to see is school to community partnership with internship classes. And I think the big piece on that is, and it's going to require a lot of outside the box thinking. You know, I applaud what Joplin's doing and where they're looking with that. But basically what that would be is a teacher at the school and a business person in the community. Maybe it's accounting. A student would take accounting class. They would actually be at the school either 2 or 3 days a week, and then they would actually go out and work in that profession with that accountant. And then the teacher and the professional will actually come back in and make that grade. They'll determine what the skill level is for that student in the awarding of the grade. So I think that that's something that's going to happen as well. It's happening in other states, and there's, in my mind, there's not any reason it can't happen in the state of Missouri. So I think when you look at college and career education, it's going to require colleges and community colleges and even 4-year to begin to work with schools and partner, much like what Crowder's doing, and looking outside the box to do, but to allow these students to be able to get as much college credit as they can while they're still in high school. But I think also it's going to require technical schools to come in and work to help these students achieve advanced training, because we have kids in our school who attend the technical center at Monette, and their desire is not to go to college. It's to weld, it's to be a mechanic, it's to get into the health services industry. And some of those kids are our brighter kids. A lot of them are our brighter kids. And they're going to be able to finish their high school credits at the end of their sophomore year or the end of their first semester of their junior year, just like the others who want to go to that 4-year school and graduate from college, but they still want to be able to get that advanced certification. So can they go to the community college or the technical school and get their advanced certification the same way somebody would their associate's degree for education? And so I think that those partnerships are going to be huge, and that's going to be the next round of communication for this task force, is how can we bring all of these folks together. And so again, technology, I talked a little bit about that. I think that that's going to be huge, because that's going to be the medium that allows students to move at their own pace. You may have, in an elementary classroom, you may have 10 different learning levels going on and one staff member. Through the use of technology, that's going to be possible, because he or she's going to be able to see where those students are at the high school level with blended learning and online classes, and no longer being tied to those four-walled rooms. I think that's going to be big. So, I think we're on the threshold of doing great things in education. I think we're on the threshold of doing justice for students. I think in the past we haven't, because we've taught them the same way at the same time, making them all learn in the box. And right now, I'm, with even the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education being willing to open the box and get out of the way, I think we're on the verge of doing some really great things for students and actually providing the education that they deserve. Probably the biggest obstacle that I've seen in trying to make some changes where I currently am is the community doesn't know, they don't like it. It's different. Giving credit based on standard or mastery, it's just, they think the student ought to have to sit in that room. That's the best way to get education, because that's the way they've been educated. And so I think overcoming that and getting the communities to open their mind and think outside the box is probably going to be one of the biggest obstacles.